We are not the country that my grandparents came to. I mean, not even close. Many countries around the world are freer than America. You know, we have high taxes. There are many countries that have lower taxes than we do. And we have a lot of government, and we have a huge deficit, which means the likely path of taxes in the future is up. I mean, we have a lot of debt. And if we don't default on it or inflate it away, someone's going to have to pay it. And that's going to mean higher taxes, particularly for younger people. Because the younger people, people in their 20s, 30s, they're the ones that are left holding the bag for the Social Security Ponzi scheme. You've got generations of Americans who are expecting you to support them. In addition, you've got to pay interest on the debt. You've got to pay for the national defense. It's not going to leave much left over, right, for people to spend on themselves. Plus, a lot of young Americans are entering the workforce with mortgages, with no houses. They have student loans, $50,000, $100,000. I had a young lady on my show, had a 4-year degree in sociology and $190,000 in student loans to get a sociology degree. Of course, she can't even get a job with that degree, but she's got these loans. So you've got a lot of generations of Americans who are stuck with loans that they can never repay. There's not a lot of good jobs out there. And if they get a job, a good chunk of their money is going to go to the government. And a bigger chunk is going to go to the government in the future. And, of course, we're not really attracting anymore as many of the types of immigrants like my grandparents because we don't have that comparative advantage in freedom. We have less freedom. We have higher taxes than a lot of other countries. And at minimum, we're about the same. I mean, we're not much different than Europe. But at one point, we had such a massive lead, it wasn't even close how much freer people were. And that's why America became so wealthy. It wasn't an accident that we became wealthy. We became wealthy for a reason. We embraced freedom and liberty and capitalism like no other country in the history of the world. And that was responsible for our wealth and for our success. Unfortunately, we abandoned those principles in the 20th century, and we're suffering for it now. I mentioned at my talk earlier, and it surprises a lot of people, so I like this statistic, especially when I heard all the Occupy Wall Street people trying to claim that, the 1%, the rich, they owe their wealth because of society, because of government, because of all the things government does and the taxes that everybody else pays. That's the only reason that people are rich, and so they should be more than happy to give a little back, as if they're not paying enough in taxes already. But during the 19th century, before we had all this government, right, I look back at the 30 wealthiest Americans, self-made. These are not the people that inherited their money, but started from scratch and made their wealth. If you adjust it for inflation, of the 30 wealthiest Americans in history, including all the ones that are alive today, all the dot-com millionaire, billionaire, all the guys around today, of the 30 wealthiest Americans, only three were born after the Civil War. That's it, 3. And of those 3, only 1 was born after the Second World War. So, I mean, the country is going downhill, and these people, and many of them didn't even go to college. Most of the people who are the wealthiest Americans, they didn't go to college. Some of them didn't go to high school. Yet they achieved wealth, that no one today can compare to the wealth that some of these people amassed. And they did it by sharing their success with an entire nation. They created products. They created the Industrial Revolution. They transformed society. We were a bunch of farmers, and we became an industrial society. People were living in cities. Because of the wealth that these men achieved in a free market, not only did they create all these products, but they created jobs. So many jobs that tens of millions of immigrants were coming in and nobody was unemployed. And all that was done with freedom, with sound money, with gold standard, with deflation, all the things that the government says we don't want. That's what we had. And that's why we became successful. But today, we don't have any of those advantages. In fact, we have a lot of disadvantages. And I think that we have a real threat that if we stay on the course that we're on, that the next major wave of immigration is not going to be coming in, but emigration going out. In fact, another thing that happened when I was running for Senate, and again, they still talk about this now, today, is everybody would say, what about a wall? Let's build a wall on the southern border to keep the Mexicans out. And I always had the same answer why I was opposed to building that wall. Because I said, look, we may build it to keep the Mexicans out, but we're going to use it to keep the Americans in. And people would think, well, no, why would anybody ever want to leave? Look, when I had that girl on my radio show, that young lady, and she asked me for her advice, you know what my advice was? Leave the country. That's your only hope. Because otherwise you're stuck with that debt. If you leave the country, good luck getting it. But if you work anywhere in America, they're going to take that student loan. I mean, it was such a big payment, she was stuck. And there are a lot of people that are going to be looking at this the perspective. And I know at one point at our universities, they had polls. And what do you want to do? And these are the top universities. And for a while, everybody wanted to go to Silicon Valley. That's where they all wanted to get jobs in tech. And then all of a sudden, they all wanted jobs on Wall Street. Right? They wanted to go to Goldman Sachs or Morgan Stanley. You know what they want to do now? They want to go to Shanghai. Like they want to leave the country. The top talent wants to leave. And, you know, I've been traveling around the world, and there are plenty of places now where there's no income taxes outside the United States. And there are people from all around the world working there. You know who everybody feels sorry for? You know the people who have the most problems working abroad? It's Americans. You see, America is about the only country in the world where the price of citizenship is you got to pay income taxes on anything you earn, no matter where you are. See, every other country says, look, if you earn money in another country, we don't want any of it. Keep it. It's only if you earn the money in their country they tax you. So if you go down to, let's say, the Bahamas, where there's no income tax, and there's a bunch of Canadians that are living there, they're living tax-free. The Americans are paying income taxes, right? And so an American citizenship used to be an asset. Now it's a liability. In fact, it's an enormous liability. It cost a fortune to get rid of it. It didn't used to cost anything to get rid of it. But if you want to renounce your U.S. citizenship now and you have a lot of wealth, you're going to pay a huge tax. And more importantly, even if you're young, this is something that's pretty interesting. And it shows you that the government is trying to get ahead of this. I think it was about within a month, the government decided to impose a fee on getting the form to renounce your citizenship. It used to be free. So if you wanted to renounce your citizenship, you just asked for a form. And if you didn't have any money, if you're just a 22, 23-year-old kid, just fill it out and you can go through the process of renouncing your citizenship. Now that form costs $450. I think it's the most expensive form you can request. Now, do you think it costs $450 to photocopy that form? So, what is this telling you? And here's the thing. If they can charge $450 for that form, they can charge $5,000 for that form. They can charge $10,000 for that form, right? And what are they thinking? You know what they're thinking is we got a lot of young kids who we need to tax the hell out of if we're going to keep our promises to the people who are waiting to collect Social Security. We can't let them leave, right? They know that. So they're trying to figure out now. And of course, the next step is, well, what if you can't afford the form? Well, what if you have to sneak out? That's why I was worried about that wall. Because some Americans, look, why was it that the Soviet Union had to put a wall, build a wall to keep the people in? Because they didn't want to stay. Because they knew there was better opportunity. See, when you have an oppressive society, you've got to keep the people in. Because otherwise they're going to leave. And that is the direction that we're headed. How is America going to keep young people here if we're taxing them to death?